Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf here with Daily Clout, and I wanted to live stream because those of you who follow my work and follow me on X know that I've been very distraught. I mean, really so upset since Saturday. It's now Monday. Uh, because of reports about Elon Musk and six teammates or colleagues of his um, getting access to USAID and to Treasury Department records. And I want to explain to you because there's a lot of flack incoming on social media and answer all your questions, but explain really clearly and carefully why I am so concerned about this. You deserve to know and really understand it. So, first, let me just remind you that in 2021, March of 2021, I did a video that went viral explaining why vaccine passports were the beginning of the end. Digital vaccine passports, which you should remember at that time were being widely promoted as the solution to lockdowns. It'll let us go back to life as usual. It'll let us regain our freedom. And there was a success in Europe and in many countries in implementing vaccine passports and making sure you had a digital vaccine certification in Israel, for instance, in order to access basic services like travel or even getting groceries, sitting in certain locations, entering spaces, right? And and everyone was like, hey, maybe this is a good idea. And I'm a tech CEO of a tech company. And I'm also a journalist. And I was also in the 90s a political consultant to President Clinton's reelection campaign and then to Vice President Gore's presidential campaign. So the reason I mention that is I have unusual background. I'm not saying I'm the smartest person in the world, but there are not that many people who have been a journalist, a political consultant to a White House and a vice president, and a tech CEO. And so I've been all three. So that gives me the ability to recognize not just what's at risk in terms of data management, but also what the big picture is politically, okay? And in terms of your First Amendment and Fourth Amendment rights. So that video that went viral explained to people that that right now, and this was something people really didn't understand, right then in 2021, the technology existed, and it wasn't even complex technology, such that you could have a vaccine passport app on your phone to let you get in and out of the gym in New York, for instance. And right away, with half an hour of coding on the back end, as we say, they can add your credit score. And right away, they could add your medical records. And right away, they could scrape social media and assign you a score, more Republican or more Democrat or more green or more fossil fuel or more pro-choice or more pro-life, right? That will be added to that, right? And that there's literally no limit of functionalities, which is the word we use in tech land, that can be added with little snippets of code on the back end, like so easily, not difficult, not rocket science, to quickly turn that vaccine passport app into a China-style social credit system, all right? Now, let me remind everyone, and believe me, I'm going somewhere with this, what happens in China now that there is a China-style social credit system? You literally can't cross certain crosswalks if you've been unhelpful to the Chinese Communist Party in some way or been critical of a Chinese communist bureaucrat on your social media feed. You literally can't get your kids into certain colleges or universities. You literally can have your mobility. You can't get in and out of your housing estate, right? Like you literally have to swipe that social credit uh, app essentially to participate in society in any way at all. And since all of society is now digitized to integrate with that functionality, it means that your access can be sliced and diced, right? In China, you can, you could have just food turned off. You could have just medical care turned off. You could have just getting on buses and trains turned off. You can have certain buses and trains turned off, right? And that's in China. Well, I'm telling you, they're starting to implement this in European and Western countries incrementally, so you don't notice. I'll give you an example. When I was in Canada 2 weekends ago, I was in Toronto speaking about tyranny, ironically. And when my limo driver or private car driver that the host had sent for me went 15 minutes away from the airport, his phone shrieked like an overwhelming sound came out of his phone. And I said, "What is that?" And he explained that in their system, the airport signals your phone to shriek at you if you go outside your permitted range of where you can drive, right? So a 15-minute city can be created without even barriers, just with what's called geofencing, just with the sensors recognizing that, the driver has gone outside of a certain perimeter. And not only that, but he said that, and he started to say this very positively, right, about this whole system, because we both realized as he was speaking that the system was spying on both of us inside the car, right? But he said that because of, and there's always a story, right, a cover story for why this is such a good idea, that is sold to people through, in Canada's case, state-owned media. But the story there is there's so much insurance fraud, and to get away from the insurance fraud and keep costs down for everyone, you have to have these cameras and sensors in your car. And that when he picks up his phone, the sensor yells at him, "Put down your phone," right? And that's to avoid accidents. But also if he runs a red light or goes too fast through a yellow light, it will inflict a fine on him. And there's just this constant surveillance, and of course, constant data collection of what's going on inside this car. And so that's what's going on in Canada. And it's so easy, right? It's so easy bit by bit to construct what Catherine Austin Fitts, who's one of the few people who really understands how dangerous this is, calls the control grid. All right. Well, thanks to us in 2021 and 2022, we drafted a vaccine passport. So it was called the Five Freedoms Bill. It was a really good bill. And it ended lockdowns, ended emergency law. It forbade vaccine mandates. Sorry, there's light on my face. You'll just have to forgive me. And it also made it illegal to create a digital vaccine passport registry system. And that bill passed in 33 states. So if you do not have a mandatory vaccine passport system in the state where you live, it's largely because I did that, 20-minute video, and it went viral, and people who were not techies and not data nerds could understand, oh, wow, this isn't benign. This can be used for very nefarious purposes. All right. And lots of people are tuning in, and lots of people are listening, and I'm glad. So let me now go to what I'm worried about. Now, you may all know, you probably know that I actually endorsed this administration, the Trump administration. I have been a lifelong Democrat. I walked away during the horrors of the lockdowns and the mandates and my own censorship and deplatforming from X, from what was then Twitter, and Facebook and YouTube in 2021 for accurately reporting on women's symptoms, menstrual symptoms from the mRNA injection. And so I support, I'm cheering for this administration. I want President Trump to do well. I want him to get it right. I think, the American people have spoken. He has a mandate. He has a super gigantic mandate. But at the same time, he's a man in his 70s. The people around him are in their 50s and 60s for the most part, and they come from political or commercial backgrounds. He's a businessman, but he's not a tech titan. All right. I mean, it's cool that he has, Truth Social, and it's cool that he's built apps and he's into crypto and blockchain. But how can I put it? Everyone can't be an expert on everything, right? And the world of digital technology is moving so fast that if you're not in the world of digital technology, but you're an advisor to the president or your chief of staff, and you come from another world, it's very difficult to know what to look for in terms of threats posed to our nation's data by potential access by people who do know the value of that data, all right, and do know how to manipulate it or mirror it or backdoor it or, alter it or monetize it or exploit it. Okay. So the other thing I just want to say, because I'm really being yelled at on social media for even raising these questions about Elon Musk's access to America's data sets, access to the Treasury records and USAID. I want to say two things, as predicate. I am very much in favor of rooting out corruption, obviously, and I love, the premise of transparency. Go for it, root out corruption. Sunlight, etc., is the best disinfectant. However, and so people who are yelling at me and saying, oh, you don't want to root out corruption, that is not true. I'm thoroughly in favor of rooting out corruption. And people who are saying, where have you been in other administrations? I will say proudly, I have been yelling about exactly the same things since 2007, when I wrote my book, The End of America, warning about slides into tyranny here in the United States. And I've been consistent, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump. I am thoroughly consistent. My allegiance is to the Constitution and to our country. So this is not a partisan thing, but I think that President Trump and his team may not fully understand the risk that they're running from what I saw from news reports. I don't have I'm not read in. I don't have a clearance. I'm not working for the administration. I am just an outsider. So all I have are news reports and the president's own speeches and Elon Musk's own speeches. But I'm very worried about Elon Musk having access in the way that he got access without certain guardrails in place. They may be there, they may not, but we don't know. All right. So let me tell you what I'm scared about. First of all, let me again disclose I currently have a conflict with X. I can't say what it is, but I do have a conflict with X right now. I'm disclosing that. So that means I'm not objective. That said, I also always try to tell the truth. So having disclosed that I have a conflict, here's what I'm worried about. Elon Musk got access to USAID's records and also to the Treasury Department's records. To my knowledge, it's my understanding he has a top-level clearance from the President of the United States. Okay, good. It's my understanding from news reports that his 5 or 6, it's unclear the exact number, team members who went with him don't all have that same highest level of clearance. So why does that matter? Um, to me, it matters because if they don't all have the highest level of clearance and they're looking at classified material, they're looking at material that is our secret, right? It's our nation's secret. Um, and that's very, very, very dangerous, right? There are different levels of clearance. So are is everything those lower level clearances people saw appropriate to their level of clearance, or did they see material that is for eyes with a higher clearance level than theirs? Why does this matter? Because I'm sure there's tons of horrible corruption in USAID. I don't doubt it. There's probably tons of corruption in the Treasury Department. I'm all for audits, right? Absolutely no question. But when you've got people who are not from the federal government, right? They're from a third party entity. They may be ex-employees. It's not clear to me from the news reports who they are, right? Who do they work for? Who are they? I don't know. But they haven't been given the highest level of clearance. It means that their vetting hasn't been as thorough as is the vetting of the people who get the highest level of clearance. And it also means that they may be seeing things. Yes, there's overclassification for sure. For sure, things are often classified just to, cover up corruption or misdeeds. And I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I love openness. I love transparency. But I'm also aware that, some of our national security requires keeping secrets. Sometimes we have people in the field who are helping us fight terrorists, or who are thwarting nuclear attacks against our country, or who are, keeping people from attacking our energy grid, or who are keeping people from engaging in chemical attacks on us, or who are simply getting information, from our enemies, which we have, about how they plan to disrupt us, ruin us, impoverish us, make war upon us. And they're operating in secret, and they're operating around the world in secret. And we don't know, like, every day bad things happen, or would have happened to the United States, that are thwarted by people who are out there around the world doing things that are classified. All right. And I am the first person to say there needs to be, of course, congressional oversight, and, and classification shouldn't be overused. But if we don't know who those 5 or 6 people are with Elon Musk, we really don't know who they are, right? Some news reports have come up with their names, but you and I can't check them, right? And these are our secrets, right? They don't belong to the intel community. They don't belong to this administration. Everything the government does belongs by law. Even if it's classified, it means we can't all see it unless we have a clearance. But all that material, those archives, belong by law to the people of the United States of America. So are maybe the 5 people with Elon Musk are totally kosher, totally vetted, totally cleared. We know all their conflicts of interest. They're not working for the Chinese. They're not working for the Russians. Maybe they're thoroughly kosher and the president is completely on board with everything that they are. Maybe, I don't know, but that's an unknown. And the fact that they've seen, material above their clearance level is, at least according to news reports, is a concern to me, because I don't know, I can't know what that is, but I know that that people are cleared for good reasons. Okay. So another reason I'm worried is that when I was a White House spouse, rightly, and my husband at that time was a speechwriter for President Clinton, rightly, we were asked to put all of our assets into a blind trust. Why is that so important? It meant that we couldn't, or people similarly situated, no one who worked in the federal government, no one working on the speechwriting side for President Clinton or Mrs. Clinton, could put bets or invest in things that they knew in advance would be happening because they were writing the speeches, right? So it prevented insider trading, and it prevented, hey, everyone, and it prevented conflicts of interest, right? If you are a speechwriter for the White House and you've got a bunch of Apple shares, it's so easy to throw into a speech a phrase about the miracle of putting Apple computers into every classroom in America and a bill that will do just that, and have your shares, 10x in value. It's so easy to do that unless there are laws preventing your working inside the federal government from benefiting you as a private citizen or in a third party way, benefiting your business, benefiting your shares, right? So obviously that system has broken down because we have so many gazillionaires now in Congress who started out, just making the congressional salary. And that's dodgy as heck, and it should all be investigated. But the point I'm making is, to my knowledge, and again, I'm just going on news reports, Elon Musk and his team of 5 or 6 people haven't closed down their business conflicts with the federal government. To my knowledge, as I know this, he's still in charge of X, for instance. He's still in charge of SpaceX. He's still in charge of Neuralink. He's still in charge of Tesla. He's still in charge of all of his businesses, while he now is acting on behalf of the federal government, seeing all of our most sensitive data. Why is that problematic? There are, and I think you saw this in his reaction to the H-1B visas. You remember that little mini scandal? One of the first things that DOGE addressed was the H-1B visas, and Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk both tried to protect the H-1 visa system, which allows them to bring in talented foreign non-American citizen engineers and IP people and tech people at a discount, basically in a program underwritten by your tax dollars. So to me, that's just like human nature is human nature. If you don't have guardrails preventing conflicts of interest, where DOGE with all this power can go in and cut and slash the federal government, maybe for our benefit, but maybe also for the benefit of all these other third-party business interests, you have a setup for massive conflicts of interest. So how could that play out right now? If you're Elon Musk and your 5 unknown colleagues, right? And you still have these conflicts of interest. And to me, it's a gigantic conflict of interest if you're still running many huge companies while at the same time serving this capacity on DOGE, which I pointed out early on, until recently wasn't a clear thing, right? It wasn't a nonprofit, which has certain disclosures and restrictions. It wasn't what's called a C4, which has certain disclosures and restrictions. It wasn't a corporation, which has certain disclosures and restrictions. It wasn't a part of the federal government until, I believe, recently it got incorporated as part of this federal government, which has many disclosures and restrictions. So for many weeks, if not months, of DOGE existing, it didn't even have a website. It didn't have a board. It didn't have 990s, right? It didn't have all the things that all these other formal entities require in order for there to be accountability and transparency. So what was it? We didn't know. So now it's something. It seems to be part of the federal government. And that's good because there are some guardrails, right, around how people who are part of the government can work. And I know that everyone's mad at the federal government, but we actually have some very good laws in place to make sure that the US government can't be as corrupt as other governments, for instance, or can't sell your data in certain ways, or can't use your data to go after you in certain ways, right? That's why we have lawsuits all the way to the Supreme Court when the government oversteps and acts like a third world dictatorship, the way that the Biden administration did in coercing Twitter and Facebook and other platforms to censor its critics. Well, if you still have those conflicts of interest and you're, one of the most powerful businessmen in the world, and your 5 or 6 unnamed buddies or colleagues, or named but really not known by us, not elected by us, not vetted by us, it's very tempting. You could go in and look at the tax returns of your competitors, in the tech space. You could theoretically, we haven't gotten there yet, but look at the patent filings for your competitors, for your other businesses. You could you could leak or suck up all the data in the databases for donors to your guy or to the other guy, right? And as a private individual, you could make use of that information for your own purposes. You could, if you're looking at classified information, you might see scandals or investigations that are not public of your business competitors, right? And you might want to exploit those or use those as leverage in a negotiation. You're seeing so many things. If you were just working for the federal government, you sign contracts that make sure that for instance, it's a non-compete. You're not competing with the federal government. You're not going to use the information in a way that will compete with your primary responsibility to the federal government if you work for the government or if you're a contractor for the government. But if you also have all these other business interests and you're also a private individual with these huge or even small, business interests, that's a conflict right there. And we don't know what kind of NDA or what kind, meaning non-disclosure agreement or non-disclosure language, and what kind of non-compete language, which is standard in the tech world, standard in business, right? You won't compete. You won't use what you're finding out in this project of working for DOGE to undermine what we're trying to do for the United States. To disadvantage what we're trying to do in the United States for the American people. We don't know that Elon Musk and his 5 friends have signed any non-competes or non-disclosure agreements. And if you follow my work with Emerald Robinson, that we were very, very worried early on in the transition that NDAs were not being asked for, right? Which put a lot of sensitive personal data and information at risk. So that's really a concern, all right? And what it does by being able to see, like now Elon Musk has kind of an X-ray map of Microsoft, of Oracle, of other competing electric car companies, of competing satellite companies. He now is in a position to use that proprietary information, depending on what he signed, right? Which we haven't seen. Maybe he doesn't, but maybe he does. Maybe they haven't thought about it at the White House when maybe they should, right? I don't know. All of my anxiety may be laid to rest if we could see the documents or even get a statement from the White House saying that all of these issues have been taken care of, but we don't have that right now. So maybe it's wide open, right? But his and his team's being able to see the entire landscape of all of his competitors, all of their secrets, possibly someday all of their patents, certainly, anything that might be a vulnerability for them, all of their tax returns, all of their filings, which right now he cannot see in a business context, right? All of that intel, all of that information in the hands of a private individual, a business owner, puts him in the position to dominate all of those industries with basically inside information. So I'm just telling you that, right? that could be a huge exposure for the federal government. It could lead to a lot of lawsuits from his competitors against the federal government for letting their private information be exposed to someone who still has this conflicted relationship with his work on DOGE and his work running all these other companies. Like, when I say a conflict, here's what I mean. When you're a CEO of a company, private company, and doing business as a CEO, your legal obligation is to, you have what's called a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders. Meaning, I might think as CEO of Daily Clout that, paying attention to the Pfizer documents and then the Moderna documents forever is a fantastic public service, and it is. But I don't have the right, I don't even have the legal right as CEO of a private company to do that if it means that I'm not serving my shareholders and not maximizing the value of their investment. That's my legal obligation to them, and I can be sued by them for choosing to run the company in any way that doesn't serve them. So they're my allegiance, right, legally as a private business owner. However, when you work for the federal government, or when you're a contractor for the federal government, you sign a document that says that your allegiance, your responsibility, your primary loyalty is to the federal government and to the people of the United States of America and to the Constitution. And you can get sued if you don't do that, right? Or you can get fired, or you can face many consequences, as we're seeing with Dr. Fauci, right? Who put the well-being of the people lower than his own self-interest, owning patents, having corrupt relationship to the IP that he was generating. So, as they say in the Bible, you can't serve two masters, but even legally, you can't serve two masters. So I don't understand the documents that Elon Musk and his team signed with the president that would allow him to serve his shareholders, not recuse himself from decisions in the federal government that affect his business interests, and also have such an integral role within the federal government. I don't get it. Like, as a business owner, I don't get how you can do both. It seems like a legal cesspit, because either you're going to serve the people of the United States of America and the Constitution, or you're going to serve your shareholders. But Elon Musk can't legally stop serving his shareholders while he works for DOGE. So I'm not going to say they come first, because it seems like a direct conflict, but they can't come second legally. They can't possibly. So if what he sees in his work as on DOGE, of, for instance, his competitors' vulnerabilities or IP or their tax returns, if he doesn't use that to advantage his own shareholders, they could sue him. So how is this not, as they say, always already a conflict, because he legally is not 100% able to work for the United States of America and the people of the United States as a federal employee. If he still has all of his business interests, and to my knowledge hasn't recused himself at all, right? In what way has he recused himself? I haven't seen it. Now, here's someone who avoided a conflict. Look at RFK Jr. He resigned from Children's Health Defense so that no one can say to him in that hearing, you are going to use your position, if we do confirm you, to benefit your nonprofit. No, there's no conflict. He resigned. But that's not the situation with Elon Musk and his team right now. There are other things I'm worried about. And this is the core of what I'm worried about. I don't think that Scott Bessent and President Trump, or President Trump's chief of staff, really understood the technical vulnerability of Elon Musk spending 2 days over a weekend with no one else around, right? Because federal employees go home over the weekend, and Musk tweeted, "Oh, this is such a superpower, I'm not going home." Well, that means they weren't around. Who was around? I don't know. But I don't think they understand the technical vulnerability. And I'm not saying it happened. I'm saying if we don't have the documentation or statements to the contrary, it could have happened, right? And the seriousness of what could have happened is sufficient for me to raise this alarm, even though everyone's yelling at me. With 5 people who may be engineers and with access to the data sets for the Treasury Department and USAID, whatever you think about those programs, right? That's not my concern. I'm thoroughly willing to concede that they need a complete overhaul or, restructuring. But just with 5 people and 2 days, a technologist and a team of technologists could mirror the data, backdoor the data, meaning create vulnerabilities in the cybersecurity of our data. They could just collect all the data so that they can export it and have it outside of the air-gapped secure system constructed by US federal cybersecurity. They could put, it's all theoretical, right? Put algorithms or code in that alters search. They could, they could erase data. Like, it's so bad. It's so vulnerable. The technological tampering that's possible in 2 days with 5 colleagues, we don't know who these colleagues are. We don't know what they did. Maybe they just sat there and scrolled the way Scott Bessent would, or the way an auditor would, right? But that's not their skill set. Their skill set is to manipulate, adapt, use AI, create algorithms to engage with the data sets. And even if all they did was, somehow take with them the data, right, which you could practically do on a thumb drive in a lot of cases, and like where they searched going in, where they searched going out, I'm not aware of what security circumstances there were going in and following Elon Musk and his team of 5 or 6 people. And this is a very, very, very big deal, because usually when people look at classified information, it's in, I think it's called a SCIF. It's in a highly secure environment where there's lots of layers of making sure nothing is taken, nothing is altered. But this is everybody's stuff, right? This is your tax returns, my tax returns, your, his competitors' tax returns. They're all housed under that Treasury rubric. It's contracts for our most sensitive systems, our defense systems, our aeronautic systems, our energy systems. It's the richest trove of information, not just for our enemies, right? But for creating a data set that is for breaking into a data set, essentially, that's the most valuable data set and the most secure data set in the world, right? And that's the personal information of Americans. I know that on social media, people who respectfully are not very well informed, I'm just going to say that frankly, because I do think this is kind of an emergency, are saying, well, everyone has our stuff anyway, as if the horse has already left the barn and there's no point in trying to secure anything. Well, that's really, really, I'm just going to say it, that's very ill-informed. That's very dumb. Yes, there are data breaches. Sure, there are data breaches. But right now, you can't see my tax returns. Okay, you can't. And when people tried to look at and use the data in people's tax returns for political purposes, which they tried to do in the Biden administration, they tried to do it in Clinton's second term, I believe, they get in trouble, right? They get in trouble. They're not allowed to do that. So I'm not saying, people on the inside or the outside don't try to get at our sensitive data all the time. They do. But much as you hate the federal government, we actually have a system that is, compared to pretty much any other country in the world, cleaner and with more guardrails than the data that you may have in Russia or in China or in any banana republic, Singapore, right? In which your political enemies can get access to your finances, or your potentially compromising material on you can be fed for money to people who want your property or want your business, right? That's how business is done with governments in corrupt nations around the world. But we actually, much as annoyed as you are at the US federal government, there actually are guardrails and protections around, still, we're fighting to keep them there, around your what's called PII, personally identifying information. So they still can't get at your HIPAA protected medical records. They try. That is one of the most valuable tranches of data that Silicon Valley is trying to get at. It's why I was so upset about Larry Ellison's announcement. Oh, we'll just create an AI mRNA injection for your cancer. Just give us all your personally identifying medical data and your DNA, right? Because that's what they want. That's the last. Silicon Valley has monetized software in your computer, in your devices, in your smart home. The gold rush that they have not been able to get at for really policy reasons alone is HIPAA data, your medical data, unless you opt in and volunteer it to them, as you do when you use an app and you don't read the terms and conditions that says, okay, we're going to monitor your heart rate or your glucose levels, right? And that's what they wanted with vaccine passports, in addition to the control grid, or US private government data. They don't have it and they can't get at it. And why can't they get at it? Because federal employees sign confidentiality agreements and contracts with the federal government, which, to my knowledge, I don't know what kind of contract Elon Musk and his 5 guys and girls have signed. And also because of the Fourth Amendment. President Biden had to answer to the Supreme Court for taking my tweet, that warned women of menstrual damage, lifting it up, sharing it with the CDC, saying be on the lookout for tweets like this, and then using it to pressure X or Twitter at that time and Facebook. He had to answer to the Supreme Court because it was illegal, right? And there are more lawsuits coming. Well, everyone who's been vaccinated, right? Everyone in the armed forces, all of our armed forces injuries and vulnerabilities, all that is protected data held by the federal government. China would love to know exactly who's injured or incapacitated in our military. What a fantastic advantage that would give them. But even if it's just everyone's tax returns, right? All, 300 million people of working age. Elon Musk has access to that now, as well as everyone's social security number. So what can a good technologist do with all of that? It means that right now, depending on how secure the leaving of that review was, right? If anything was mirrored, if anything was reproduced, if anything was sucked out onto a thumb drive, right? It means that theoretically right now, you could be switched on and switched off via an app that Elon Musk could build in his other role as tech oligarch right now, because now he has all your stuff and he has all of my stuff. Okay. And what does that mean? And Whitney Webb pointed this out. Elon Musk has been wanting to build an everything app, which is really the same as a social credit score, social credit system, but with 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 anyone's tax records and social security number, he now could build an app that he could lease back to the federal government, because now as a third party, he's not constrained by the constraints that limit the federal government from doing this to you. But he could say, oh, you want to know, your political enemies, properties? Here they are. This is where they are. You want to know every single expense your political enemies listed. Here they are. I've created an algorithm to serve them up to you. Does anything look dodgy? Just go after them. Oh, and by the way, I've sorted it with a filter to the Democrats' top donors. Here you are. Or, do you want to mirror the business plans as revealed in the private records of your competitors? Boom. AI can spit out those business plans now. And remember one other thing, AI doesn't operate alone. AI lives on data, real data, not imaginary data. So they want it so much. What are they lusting after? The people who are in the AI arms race. And I don't think President Trump understands this well enough, or he wouldn't let people in on a weekend to do whatever they may have done, maybe nothing scary, maybe very scary things. Remember, it takes so little time. Like, depending on what they walked in with and what they walked out with, it could take 2 hours to suck our most vulnerable, important data sets out of these databases. AI wants this, right? They want the HIPAA protected medical records, and AI wants what this massive tranche of private information in the greatest economy in the world, the freest nation in the world, protected by the federal government. That's what AI wants. Well, now, depending on what happened over the weekend, maybe nothing, maybe everything, maybe something problematic, maybe not. Elon Musk's version of AI can have that, right? Can have that. Where are Naomi Wolf's investment properties? Ask Grok, right? Right? Go harass your enemies. Go dox them. I mean, it's so bad. It's so bad. So I guess I'll stop there, except to say, again, I want to give credit, I guess. I think these are very technical, nerdy worries. They're huge worries if you're in the data management world. And that's what my company does, is manage government data, right? So, but they're worries that you wouldn't know to be worried about if you're President Trump, or if you're, Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, or even the vice president, although Peter Thiel is certainly aware of the, juicy, delicious access that Elon Musk and his team just had in reviewing / maybe sucking up, maybe mirroring, maybe backdoor accessing, all of Treasury's data, all of USAID's data. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's like stone soup to me, right? It's very important to review corruption. Again, I'm thoroughly in favor of that, and I'm all for it. And there are precedents of outside advisors, like Henry Kissinger, right? Initially was an outside advisor coming in to help the president with objective review of that kind. That's not the problem. But knowing how valuable and how compromising, and also how one shot, right? If there was this one security breach, you can never get it back. If there was this one security breach, the United States can never be secure again. Your records can never be secure again. Your ability to be free of a social credit system can never be secure again, right? Maybe all of this was done with complete kosherness and oversight technically, and in terms of cybersecurity, I don't know. But in the event that it wasn't, it's over, right? You cannot get it back. You can't secure it retroactively. The data is out there, or compromised, or gone. And so I guess what I'm saying is I'm giving like a pass to President Trump because I can't imagine he understands how serious this is because it's such a nerdy thing to worry about. But I hope I've explained how serious it is and whether there was bad infosec, as they say, information security or not. We don't know, but I think the American people are owed a statement that the highest level of cybersecurity that was not these people, right, oversaw Elon Musk's access to all our stuff. Um, and certainly, optimally, the contracts or even a description of the contract that governs Elon Musk's and his team's engagement with our most sensitive data should be made public. If it's classified, it can't be made public, but there should be some kind of description of what the parameters are, what the security is around our data, because other tech bros like Ellison, like Peter Thiel, trust me, are contemplating the fact that Elon Musk and his team got to spend all weekend with our data, with the United States government's most sensitive data, everyone's tax returns, right? Everyone's social security information, all of our contracts. And that data is, I just can't even describe to you, like the holy grail, right? For tech bros. That's the holy grail. Everyone wants it. No one can get at it. Now Elon Musk got at it. Under what circumstances, what guardrails, what protections? We don't know. So that's me. And lastly, I do want to say a couple of things. People have been saying, oh, like, shut up, like, don't complicate President Trump's efforts. And I really respectfully disagree with that. You guys have not been an advisor to 2 presidential campaigns. I have. It helps the principal, right? The president or the vice president or the candidate. It helps the president to hear from his constituents what they're worried about. Being president is like having 20 trains come at you every hour from all different directions. And it is impossible to stay on top of everything. It's impossible to be informed about every nuance of everything. So presidents really need their citizens to yell and scream when their mission veers off track, or when there's a detour that the citizens think is dangerous or problematic. They need to hear it because their advisors won't always tell them. Once you're elected, you're inside this bubble where everyone just wants to say what they think you want to hear. They don't want to bring you bad news. They don't want to tell you you're making mistakes. They want to keep being promoted, included in the inner circle. It's a very dangerous situation. So someone could be a fantastic president, and if the people who elected him or her are not screaming and yelling when they're worried about something, he's not well served. All right. It's your job to speak up so he can hear what you are worried about. Okay. And this is a completely legitimate thing to bring up. It also helps the president do their job better when they know what the people are worried about. A good president wants to make you happy. He doesn't want you to shut up and watch important aspects of your mandate be chipped away by the people around him, right? But if you don't speak up, it's only the people with a seat at the table that he hears from. And that's not optimal for anyone, including the president. And the other thing is, you guys, how can I put this? There's so much, like, I voted for President Trump. I did. And I endorsed President Trump, and that was a big deal. But the danger that cybersecurity breach, or that any kind of violations of our rights to privacy as citizens, the dangers that pose, those are not partisan. And I've been raising the same alarms about the same issues, as I said at the start of this video, consistently since 2007. And it's not partisan to, no one owns perfection, right? So now you've got a president. A lot of people are really excited. I was excited. I want to still be excited. But, you have to get over, everyone has to get over this notion that if once you elect your person, that's it, you can go back to the couch and zone out and surf Netflix. No one can rescue you. There is no knight on a white horse. The pressures of governing are so intense from so many vested interests, including advisors with conflicts of interest, right? Bearing down on you every minute, that if people don't keep advocating and lobbying their president, um, nothing will save them, right? It's very quick that the special interests can do away with the agenda of any president, even the best, any senator, any congressperson, even the best. So please stop thinking we've elected a knight on a white horse and all you have to do is go back to your couch and he will rescue you because he's a good guy. That doesn't help him, right? That's not the way it works, and it doesn't help him. You need to keep being patriots. And even if your own guy is in there, it doesn't mean you can go back to sleep. That the president has to fight the good fight every single day. And without your voices as patriots, he can't do that. So that's me signing off. There are many interesting and wonderful comments. Let's see. Lorraine Ortega says Musk now has free reign to violate everyone's rights. I don't know that, Lorraine. And again, I want to stress, I have an active conflict right now with X that I can't disclose. But I hope I've shared with you what the very real possibility is that we really need to rule out, especially if DOGE is going to go after, the next important, the patent office or whatever's next on their agenda. All right. Gasha says, I agree, thumbs up. Thank you. Let's see. Frederick Gramco says, Kabuki theater, that's what our two-party system, tech giants, academia, and the MSM are. There's a lot of truth to that. It's up to us to not let it be Kabuki theater. Frederick Gramco also said, your records are not secure, period. I hope I addressed that thoroughly. I mean, yes, to some extent that's true in the outer world, but I will restate that within the federal government, there are some laws protecting your data as well as classified information that can't be breached without, as you saw, Supreme Court challenges, Supreme Court level challenges. And that's the Fourth Amendment, guys. Like, read your Constitution. No one has a right to unreasonable search and seizure of anything that belongs to you. And so that's why I bring this up. Will it stand constitutional scrutiny? Lastly, one thing I didn't mention, I should mention it before I sign off, the power of the purse, right? We elect Congress to authorize expenditures, and we have a beautiful tripart system that was put in place by our founders. If we're going to ditch that and let private individuals dictate what programs get crushed and what don't without any congressional oversight, maybe we'll amend our whole system so that is how we operate. But for right now, the Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse. So I don't see how I see how recommendations to close things down are kosher, and that's how special advisors usually work before DOGE. But I don't see how giving DOGE the power to close down programs that Congress has authorized is constitutional. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm sure that will be, hashed out or adjudicated. But I just want you to here's what I want you to do before I sign off. And I hate being this person because it means everyone's mad at me, the left and the right, the left and the right, the left and the right, because I always say the same thing, which is imagine these powers in the hands of people you don't like, right? Right now, a lot of people in my algorithm community are really mad at me because they love President Trump. Therefore, because President Trump chose Elon Musk and these 5 mysterious colleagues, he can do no wrong. But imagine if it was Biden and Soros looking at your tax returns. right? With a bunch of engineers who may or may not be mirroring your social security number and your address and your private information. Um, would you be that happy about that? I doubt it very much. And you'd be right to be horrified and offended. The other thing I want to tell you, lastly, I promise, as a former political consultant and longtime journalist, is that people change and the influences around them change. So right now, Elon Musk and his team and DOGE may be motivated by absolutely patriotic uh, motivations, completely aligned with MAGA and with President Trump's agenda. But you don't know if that's going to be true in a year. You don't know if he'll have a new board made up of arch liberals who are putting pressure on him to skew DOGE's conclusions in the direction of a liberal agenda. You won't know, right? Because you have no transparency or visibility into who's on his board or what they're saying to him about what DOGE should do. You don't know if China or cutouts from China will have encircled him. You don't know if a year from now there will be compromising information that, some other country or the Five Eyes has on him that is pressuring him to undermine the United States, right? There's so many, and these are hypotheticals. I have no knowledge of any of this. None of this is anything I'm suggesting is it happened. I'm just saying, or people can get tired or jaded or go into debt, have business pressures. The richest man in the world right now who's saying all the right MAGA things may have pressures you can't imagine a year from now, and he'll still have all your data, or he'll get an offer to double his riches by selling all your data, right? Or creating an algorithm that scrambles, like even just messing up the data sets, right? That could bring our economy to a standstill. You literally don't know. So just be careful, right? Always make your decisions, support the Constitution. You can do no wrong. But when you're assessing something, think, would I be comfortable if the people I hate most in the world had these powers? And if you would not be comfortable, it means that our checks and balances have been overshot. And also ask, is it in the Constitution? And if it's not in the Constitution, our checks and balances have been overshot. And lastly, just remember that people change and stop engaging in magical thinking. Nothing's black and white. People have huge pressures on them at this level. And the only way we save our country is for all of you to be vigilant and defend your rights and your Constitution. And I'm going to end by saying I think it's completely appropriate to demand to see the contracts that govern DOGE and those 5 people who sauntered in to see your Treasury records. And if they're classified, I think it's completely appropriate to ask for a detailed statement explaining exactly how our data has been protected and what our recourse is if it hasn't been. And lastly, this is just like a kind of a love letter to the American people. I still want President Trump to succeed. He's our president. And if this is something he hasn't given enough thought to, dear President Trump, you have my Valentine to you in the form of this, hour-long exposition of why I'm so concerned. And I hope that it's useful because there's a lot of course correcting that can readily be done. Thank you so much. And God bless America. And please support us on Daily Cloud so you can get independent comment like this. And you can find me on Substack. My Substack is Outspoken. Thank you for letting me have my say.